See those fine hairs on his chin? They're not beards. Well, I suppose they are beards, but they are there to help feel what he's putting into his mouth. His eyes point towards the tip of his trunk, not forward like we'd think. He's actually looking at the ground there. His trunk is very sensitive on those two lobes at the bottom of his trunk. He knows exactly what he's picking up. Sense of smell is good. And then he has all these sensory organs. I love the way they do that. So you'll notice the way he curls his trunk around the grass. This particular elephant will curl it that way around the grass every single time. And that's what gives the elephant on the right hand side that distinctive discoloration. It's just all the vegetable juices that have stained his trunk there. A trunk is an extension of his top lip and his nose. Now, unlike us, where we can breathe through our mouth or our nose, an elephant can only breathe through their nose. They can't breathe through their mouth. Their mouth is only joined to their tummy and their trunk is only joined to their lungs. Enjoying some grass this late in the season. This is one of the last times, or one of the last months I should say, not times, one of the last months they'll be eating a lot of grass. They'll gradually be shifting their diet from grass to woody species, so trees and roots, over the next couple of months. In summertime, 80% or so of their diet is made up of of grass. In winter, about 80% of their diet is made up of wood and roots, bark and sticks. See if he flaps his ear. See into his ear hole that sits in front of his ear? That's where his eardrum lies. And an elephant's brain lies directly between the two ears. And you can see the thickness of skull between the front of his head and the ears is an indication of how thick the elephant's skull is. That's all bone. It's a honeycombed bone. And by that I mean it's got all these liquid-filled chambers in it. And it acts as a massive shock absorber. And by shock absorber, when elephants are fighting with one another, bull elephant at some of the most titanic battles that you can get when they're fighting for females, they'll bash heads with one another, running at one another. You need these thick skulls to protect their brains. And elephant bulls also push down a lot of trees. And they need that spongy bone in the front of their head to help cushion blows against trees. Have a look at this. See the ears open? He's trying to make himself look bigger. He's just trying to intimidate us. Not seriously. Almost across the road. Beautiful. He's probably going to give us a little bit of a head shake. There we go. You're a big boy. You know, with elephants, you always got to make them feel like they're big. It definitely helps smooth relations. So, that head up, ears out is just a way of him trying to make himself look big and scary. You'll notice that he's still eating. That tells me that he's not angry. His tail isn't cocked to the side. That's an indication of discomfort. That's why I'm not reversing as fast as I can away from these guys. And there they move off on their day. Elephants always look like they're wearing baggy pajamas when they're walking off. Elephants are hindgut fermented, and by that I mean their digestive system is such that they can really take a lot of nutrients out of the grass and out of bushes of a variety of different quality types. They don't necessarily only have to eat the best quality food that's available. Their digestive system is geared to taking nutrition out of any type of food. And because of that, they've got a digestion that requires constant input. Food is constantly going in and constantly coming out. And although their digestive system can take nutrients out of almost anything, it's quite inefficient at taking all the nutrients out of what they're eating. Hence, the need to just eat and eat and eat. They spend, in this time of the year, 16 to 20 hours a day eating, which is a lot actually, considering. Go right ahead. Giselle from Oregon, hello Giselle, asked a very interesting question. If an elephant had to cut his ear, would he bleed profusely because he has all the blood going through his ears? Giselle, I've seen elephants do a lot of things to their ears, and very often you see elephants with injuries to their ears, even tears right through their ears. I've never seen an elephant bleeding from their ears. You probably find that Mother Nature has provided for that contingency by either making their blood congeal easy, or a network of veins that can actually shut blood off to an injured portion of that ear. I'm not too sure. I've never seen an elephant bleeding from an injury to their ear, even though you very often see injuries to ears. So the answer from my experience is no. As to why that is, I would say it's because they've got such big flappy ears. Mother Nature has already provided for that. Are we going to hang around with these two young boys? They don't seem to be worried about us at all, giving us nice insight into the lives of young bull elephant or teenagers. It's amazing how quick these guys can actually move through the bush, how quietly they can move through the bush. What's your thoughts? The reason why I want to stay in this area with these elephants is obviously they're nice to look at, but equally so, I haven't forgotten the fact that we've still got quarantine somewhere close by, and we're using this opportunity to listen to the bush around us. Once again, coming back to the fact that the bush tells a story constantly, and if you're aware of what it's trying to tell you, the options are almost limitless for what you can get up to out here. You're welcome. A young bull elephant like this will be in association for the herd for a few more years, and then they move off in search of bachelor herds. You very often find young bulls a little bit older than this joining very old bulls, and their wanderings take them very far from the natal range that they have. And that's an important thing, because you don't want young bull elephant being in a position to reproduce with their sisters and their moms, if at all possible. And these wanderings, following around old bull elephants who are not part of the mating bulls, you see that cocktail that he's got there. So it was a little bit out of focus for those of you just catching that cocktail. That was just him telling us he didn't appreciate us bashing the tree down like we did. It was, yeah, they're busy wrestling, or it could have been the fact that they're just wanting to have a bit of a play fight with one another, which is actually probably the case. These young guys have got a lot of energy to expend. Quite often play fights erupt at the most weird moments, while they're having a bath, while they're drinking, while they're eating. So coming back to the story about these guys, will eventually join up with probably an older bull elephant who's not going from breeding herd to breeding herd to for him, and it takes them for years out of the system. Now, older bull elephant suppress sexual maturity in young bull elephant. In a park in South Africa called the Pilanesberg National Park, they reintroduced young bull elephant and no old elephant, and what happened was chaos. Young bull elephant with no older mature bulls around turned into rogue elephant and damaged property, killed rhinoceros, were killing buffalo, and it stopped when they reintroduced some old Kruger bulls into the Pilanesberg to just reinforce some discipline. I'm going to try to get in front of these ellies. They are going down into some thick riverine bush. They're probably making their way to some water. Elephants will drink at least once a day. What do you think? Thick, yeah.
Yeah, they could come down this path, I guess, but their last track seemed to be that they're heading, yeah.
You know, once again, my predictions about what animals are going to do is absolutely turned on its head by the fact that they are their own animals and will do what they want to do when they want to do it, not when I want to do it. Ah, there we go. So when you're approaching elephants, it's never really a good idea to approach them directly or head on. They don't like it too much. You've got to stroke the egos of these elephants. As I mentioned a bit earlier, it's important to let them believe that they're still the biggest things in the bush. That way you avoid nasty confrontations. So eating humble pie around elephants is often one of the best ways of getting close to them, especially bull elephant. So you'll notice him now stretching into the trees, using his trunk to reach into a bush. He doesn't have to crash into the trees, even though he's fully capable of ripping that tree out by the roots. The trunk of his extends his reach by almost half of his body length. And allows him to feed to a height higher than that of a giraffe bull when he is fully mature. He will reach 5.5 meters into the air when he's mature. Once again, just pointing out how thick that skull is. If you have a look at the ear hole and the thickness of skull from the front of the head, their brain lies just behind their ear hole. Their ear hole is sort of in the middle of their brain. Their brain is about as big as a volleyball, maybe a little bit smaller than a volleyball. So a lot of skull. And that's for when they fight with one another. See how still he got there? So that stillness is typical of an elephant that's busy hearing something. Elephants are large enough to produce ultra low frequency noises, infrasound. Now, infrasound is below the level that we can hear, but is a very effective way of communicating through the bush. Research has shown that elephants will react to other elephants calling up to 10 kilometers away, roughly 6 miles away, by using these ultra low frequency noises. So don't worry folks, it's just a young teenager just letting us know what he thinks about us. Once again, we didn't move, we didn't scream and we didn't shout. We just want to let him know that we respect him. He is big. It's always best to tell them that every now and again. I think we're going to lose these two guys in this thick bush here. I think let's just go through one more of these. I'm not going to risk crashing through the bush here and damaging our car. They've allowed us a view of their life, a window into what they do every day. And I want to leave them with the same sense of peace that they've left us. Once again, impressed at the way that they just blend into the bush. There's one scraggly little bush between us and that elephant. Is about 15 meters in front of us and you can hardly see him. You're welcome. Hello, Jeffrey. You asked a nice question. Do elephants have a distinct smell? And if they do have a distinct smell, is it a bad smell? And I have to say the answer to that question is yes, sometimes. Is it overwhelming? Can we smell these elephants from where we are? No, they are basically scentless. except for when they exhale out of their trunk. It's a very herby smell. Their breath has an incredibly herby smell, and I liken it to a herbal toothpaste. I know it sounds a bit weird, but but a herbal toothpaste has that quite herby smell, and that's what an elephant's breath smells like. Then when elephant bulls go into a state of must, elephant bulls have an adaptation where their testosterone levels increase up to 70%. And this allows mature bulls to vie with one another for the favors of a female. And it's an evolutionary adaptation which helps not all the male elephants in one particular area to converge at the same time on one cow. It would be too much. It would be overwhelming for that particular elephant or for that female. And so elephant only, they themselves, their bodies go into a heightened state a couple of times a year, depending on the elephant. Some elephant have it for up to 170 days a year. Other elephants have it in patches through the year. And this particular heightened state, this must condition that they go into, and this testosterone level increase makes all the glands in their body work overtime. And they produce a lot of smell at this particular point. A mutt's bull elephant, even to humans, the smell is sickly sweet, is what I like to liken it to. It's something that you can't really describe. It's a smell that is unmistakable once you've smelt it once, and lingers for many days on the path that particular bull elephant has been walking on. He basically just drips glandular secretions that have this smell. So the answer to your question is yes, but with a range statement that says sometimes. Only when they're in must or you're close enough or downwind to smell their breath do they smell. And then their smell is unmistakable. You can't miss it for anything but an elephant. So the bush around us is still remarkably quiet. We've had no further sign that quarantine has managed to catch or kill one of those nyala or the bushbuck that we were looking at. We've heard no alarm calls. We've got no evidence that there's any squirrels calling. I've heard no franklins, nothing whatsoever to let me know where he is. What we're going to do though is we're going to go back onto the road where we saw him run across chasing that bushbuck a little bit earlier, and see if he isn't lying up close to the road. Otherwise, what we're going to do is circle the area and see if he hasn't moved out of the area, and we can pick up some alarm calls and in a slightly different zone, a slightly wider search area, and we're going to pick it up from there. So we're going to leave these elephants. I thank them very much for allowing us to stay in the area of quarantine and also for sharing some of their day with us, and I wish them luck. Hopefully they find their mommies before it gets dark and they get scared.